How long have you been with Abacus now?
I've been with Abacus for 6 years, but I've been a debt advisor for nearly 12 now. It's about 11 and a half.
And have you seen much change in the industry over the years?
Yes, massive changes. There used to be far more aggressive marketing of debt solutions than I think there is now. Things like TV programmes, adverts, newspapers. A lot of debt advice now is centred around the internet, as well as those other little things. But mainly, I think the big change now is a lot of people are buying into ethical debt advice, whereby we all sing from the same hymn sheet, and that's the way it should be. But unfortunately, there have been a few cowboys. Slowly, they are being found out and weeded out, and I think there are moves afoot whereby there will be only a certain number of trusted companies in the end. At the moment, there are upwards of, I'm led to believe anyway, 800 debt management companies, from your one-man band who puts out a little advert in the paper, right up to the your DFDs and your Baineses and all the rest of it.
Now, like myself, you work in the commercial sector.
Yeah.
How do you justify fee charging when people are comparing your solutions to the free services of CCCS and PayPlan?
It's actually very difficult to do so when you sit down with a piece of paper and say, why should I pay for something that ostensibly I can have for nothing? It doesn't quite work like that. The non-fee payers do a sterling job, the CAB, your CCCS and what have you, but unfortunately they're just not set up to cope with all the demand. If they were, there wouldn't be any fee payers. So the fee payers complement the non-fee payers massively, in my opinion, especially if, as I've said before, we can all get it right and all do it the right way ethically. And there's an old saying, you get what you pay for, so you have to bear that in mind. A lot of the free sector don't give you the backup, they don't give you the help because they just can't.
Now, the IVA protocol was launched in February 2008. Have you seen a change in the amount of IVAs been accepted since the protocol was launched?
It does seem to have significantly gone upwards. Not in a massive spike and then gone down, which I sort of expected it would, so I was wrong there. But the acceptance rate has steadily gone up. I think it's plateauing out now. I can only talk for the company I work for. Our acceptance rate at creditors' meeting is high 90-odd%. But that's usually because we try and weed out those that aren't suitable for IVAs before we get there. So creditors are playing ball, with one or two notable exceptions. So the IVA protocol, I think, has been a big help. And at the very least now, if an IVA is rejected, we should at least get a reason. So the IVA acceptance rate is very, very healthy, and it's a good deal for creditors in the end. That's the main thing.
Is there any part of a protocol you'd like to see changed or altered?
I think it's pretty good to get where it is now from where it was previously. Has been a good journey, I think. The example is that I like to use is your 10% extra and then it's 50-50. I think that's perfectly fair. I also think it's fair that creditors insist on your 6 years instead of your 5 when there's no equity release, because 3 years ago people had equity to release. So it's been a good deal for everybody concerned. I'm not sure how I could improve on it. I think that's more for the powers that be.
The debt management market, I think we both agree, needs some sort of regulation.
Yes.
Would you like to see self-regulation or would you like to see government regulation?
On a personal level, it would be nice to think that self-regulation would work. But you also have to bear in mind that government regulation is sort of, if you like, more open and more transparent. We also have to sing from guidelines that are set down for us. Now, I'm not sure that the government will do that. They may do, and if they do, then we'll all have to do it. But a strong self-regulatory body would do just as good a job, in my opinion, without extra cost to the public purse.
Yeah, yeah. And what are your thoughts on the current CCCS guidelines that most IVAs and debt management plans are compared to by the creditors?
I do, in all honesty, think that the guidelines that we have to use are a little bit obsolete. I'm still using guidelines that are from 2008, 2009, and now we're nearly in 2010. But I don't produce the guidelines, so it would be churlish of me to say, right, come on, get your finger out, give us some new guidelines. I do think for the current economic downturn and the cost of everything, that some of the guidelines are a little bit mean, in all honesty. But I've always gone with the thought that if you need the money, and you can prove that you need the money to live on, and then I'll do it, I'll run with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So the answer is always ask the question, get the answer off the client, make sure they're happy before you do anything, and then we'll run forward with it. But I would like to see new guidelines because we are a little overdue.
Yeah. And what about the recent introduction of a debt relief order? Do you think it's been useful?
I think it's been massively useful for those that need it. I think that possibly the assets proviso of that is also a little mean. It came out with no assets of above £300 to start with. That's sort of been fudged around now, and you can get away with, you know, assets of £1,000. Well, most people do have, if you sit down and list it, assets of over £1,000. But for those that need it, those that have no realistic way of paying back unaffordable debt and have no real disposable income, I think it's been a massive, massive help to people because the cost is relatively low. £90 as opposed to £510 for bankruptcy, and you can even spread that cost. It's not been of any use to the commercial sector, but that's not what's important. It's what's important to the people that need the products, and for those people that need it, it's a long overdue update on the old administration order.
Yeah. Now, Mike, how did you become involved with IVA.co.uk?
I fell into IVA.co.uk by accident, really. Probably a couple of years ago now, there was a firm of unscrupulous people in Bournemouth going under the name of the IVA Council. I logged onto their website, asked a few challenging questions, got a few ridiculous answers. Whilst I was messing about doing that, I actually stumbled upon IVA.co.uk. Thought, right, well, this is more a help forum rather than pushing somebody into an unacceptable debt solution forum. Started posting a few questions, one or two answers if I was about, and well, you invited me to be an expert, so I thought, right, well, okay, let's go for it. Let's try and help people some more if I can. As for the nickname, well, that's a cricket story. I play cricket and it's a bit of banter. Everybody has a nickname. Mine happens to be size 5 because apparently I have a head that resembles a football, and the standard football size is a size 5, so I've been called that now for 20 odd years.
Great stuff. Okay, and finally, Mike, for anybody watching this interview and who finds themselves with unaffordable debts, what advice would you give to them?
Speak to people. Speak to your husband, your spouse, your partner. Don't keep any secrets. I know sometimes that's difficult, but it's a great release that somebody can help you. That's the first thing. If you can't find yourself to do that, fair enough. Speak to some professionals, go on IVA.com, have a look round. Don't just speak to the first one that you come across. Speak to 3, 4, 5, speak to 33, 34, 35 people until you've got somebody, someone, some firm, some solution that you're comfortable with. But always, always make sure you know the pros and cons of everything, whether it be debt relief order, bankruptcy, IVA, debt management programme. Sometimes it makes sense to liquidise assets and, you know, sell a house. If it's got to be done, then do it. But make sure you know the pros and cons of everything before you sign on that dotted line. Also, I'd also encourage you as well, if you do find yourself with problems, speak to your creditors as well. Don't ignore them. They do get a bad press, and sometimes that's justified, but creditors themselves are not really wanting to unduly penalise. If you keep the lines of communication open with them, it will help you enormously, even in the most extreme circumstances whereby you can only afford token payments for a little while. If you ignore the letters and the calls, they just will get worse. So keep talking.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time today, Mike.
Thanks, Andy.
Good to see you.
Cheers, mate.